everybody, welcome back to the channel. Alright, so continuing on our Marvel MCU retrospective, we've reached Captain Marvel. So this movie came out about 2 years after the DC Wonder Woman movie came out, and there was obviously some comparisons, of course. Both are pushing these very powerful leading female superheroes, and I did write kind of like a short article comparing the two and explaining why I think Wonder Woman is the better movie. So I'll put a link to that down in the description below and you can check it out. But we'll talk about some of the things that I think make Captain Marvel a little bit better than Wonder Woman at the end of the video. But before we go ahead and get started, be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more Marvel reviews. And if you want to help support the channel, check the link in the description below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Alright, so this is going to be a long one, so buckle in. So let's get into my review for Captain Marvel. So just before this movie came out, comic book creator, Marvel creator, Stan Lee had just passed away. So the opening credits for this movie are a tribute to Stan Lee and all of his Marvel movie cameos, which is really sweet and really nice. And they do this for the Black Panther movies with Chadwick Boseman. So I really like these special credits that they have, and I hope that Marvel continues to do more. Then we opened with Carol dreaming about the accident that gave her powers, and it's like this distorted version of the real events. Eventually at the end we'll see the full version of the scene play out later, but this sets up that the Kree have been kind of brainwashed into this war against the Skrulls. So we meet Yon-Rogg, sort of her like trainer, supervisor, and he keeps telling Carol like throughout the movie, like, you know, you need to control your emotions and your impulses, and you know that it's a weakness. So he's basically gaslighting her, and because he knows her true potential and what she could do, and he needs the power source within her. He wants to control her, so he keeps telling her all these things like, you know, you need to control it, even though I don't think she's out of control with her emotions. Then we meet the Supreme Intelligence, who kind of pretty much tells her the same thing. The Supreme Intelligence appears to each person in the form of who they admire the most. So Carol sees someone that she doesn't recognize, but we learn is Dr. Lawson, but she can't remember who she is. And the Supreme Intelligence is also gaslighting her into fighting this war against the Skrulls. And the Skrulls are these shape-shifting green aliens. So Carol, also called Veers with the Kree, she goes on this mission with this team of Star Force or something, Yon-Rogg's team, and we see Korath, who was in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He was like, I think it was like Ronan's like first-hand guy or something. So he actually appears briefly here, and we do see Ronan at the end of the movie also. So there are some little bit ties into Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie. And then Carol is captured by the Skrulls because they need her memories to find Dr. Lawson. And as they're doing that, they show us all these sort of flashbacks of young Carol struggling and falling down, and all these men telling her she can't do it, she doesn't belong. And we'll come back to those scenes at the end of the movie. But, you know, it's supposed to be this like empowering moment at the end where she does decide to get back up and continue. There's definitely like this like sexist view on women and what they can and can't do, and men telling them, you know, you can't do this and that because you're a woman is a little bit heavy-handed for sure in this movie, but I think it does kind of get the message across that Carol is just this tough girl who's never going to give up. And then we get a fight scene with Carol and the Skrulls on the spaceship, which is actually kind of fun. And all throughout this movie, Carol like tries to make these like quippy jokes and stuff and has some jokey dialogue. But I don't know if it's Brie Larson or the way the dialogue's written or how it's incorporated, but it kind of feels weird at sometimes. It doesn't really feel truly organic, it feels very written, like it doesn't feel natural, like somebody would just say these things as a part of their personality. And so I think people complain that Carol always, you know, she has no personality and that she's kind of like a wet blanket. But she does try to have a personality, it just doesn't really kind of come off well a lot of the times in this movie, like when she's making these quippy jokes, it kind of just seems inserted. So that's a little bit of a problem, and I'm not 100% sure if it's Brie Larson's acting or if it's just the way the dialogue is inserted into the script. So then Carol crash lands on Earth, and it's 1995. I love all of the 90s references we got here. We got Blockbuster, Radio Shack, and the movies. And I really like the music choices throughout this movie. we got Garbage and No Doubt, and she's like wearing a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt. So it's just kind of fun nostalgia. I like it. I like Garbage a lot. So, but then we do meet a young Nick Fury and Agent Phil Coulson, which is kind of cool. I do think the de-aging here on Nick Fury is done pretty well throughout the film. There's a few shots where it looks maybe a little wonky, but I think it's pretty much done and handled really well. And I do like when Carol teams up with Fury, trying to find out what happened to Dr. Lawson, and Carol's like slowly putting together her memories and everything and discovering who she is. I think that's probably the best part of the film. And then we meet Maria Rambeau and a young Monica Rambeau, and I really like this young version of Monica, but I do like this version of Monica Rambeau, and I really like Maria Rambeau as well. I think there's also this very kind of subtle lesbian subtext between Maria and Carol, just kind of by the way Maria talks about her relationship with Carol, but of course Marvel's not going to go there. But if anybody else kind of picked up on that or has any theories, I think there is that kind of lesbian subtext there. But I really enjoy the Rambeaus in this movie. I think they are a great addition. So throughout the movie, we're led to believe that Talos, the leader of the Skrulls, is the main villain. But I do like the twist that they do with his character. Talos has some great lines, a lot of fun stuff going on, and we learn his true motives, just trying to get back to his family and his people, and that the Kree are the villains, and they're these extreme, sort of genocidal maniacs wanting to kill all the Skrulls. So that's a really kind of an interesting little twist they did with that. So Carol finally remembers what really happened the day of her accident, and we see Carol being a pilot in an aerial battle, which is really cool. And then we see the plane crash, and it's revealed that it's Yon-Rogg that actually killed Dr. Lawson, who was actually Mar-vell, a character from the comics. And that Mar-vell had been working on the engine core for some sort of space travel which is powered by the Tesseract. So Carol shoots the engine, and then she absorbs its energy somehow. So essentially she got her powers from the Tesseract, which is the container vessel of the Space Infinity Stone. So real quick, let's just take a look at the Tesseract through the MCU timeline as we have it. So we first see it in Captain America the First Avenger, with the Red Skull finds it in 1942 in Tonsberg, Norway, which I think is where New Asgard is also located, and I think it's implied that Odin had left it in Norway as well at some point in the past. And then, of course, it goes into the ice with Cap in 1945, and then sometime after that, Howard Stark fishes it out of the ocean, and then we know from Endgame that S.H.I.E.L.D. has it at least throughout the 70s, and then at some point in the 80s, Mar-vell found it or borrowed it from S.H.I.E.L.D., and she ends up using it, and it goes up in space for at least 6 years, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. gets it back at the end of this movie when Goose the Cat vomits it up, and then Loki steals it back from S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first Avengers movie. So then Thor takes it back to Asgard, and then Loki steals it again in Thor Ragnarok, and then Thanos gets it finally in Infinity War. So the Tesseract has kind of been around a lot of places in the MCU, so if it seemed a little confusing about where in the timeline the Tesseract is, that's kind of a brief example of the timeline of the Tesseract and in the MCU. So they end up with it, S.H.I.E.L.D. ends up with it back at the end of this movie. So I love towards the end of the movie when Carol finally unlocks her true powers and she learns to fly and she's glowing and everything. It's a really fun fight scene to the No Doubt song I'm Just a Girl. And I just think it's kind of so badass, actually. I mean, again, the song's a little heavy-handed with the message, but it really is kind of just fun, and she's learning her new powers as she goes and everything, and how to fly. I like that whole scene. And like I said, we also get Ronan the Accuser from the first Guardians movie. He shows up here basically just to allow Carol to show off how powerful she is, because she takes out all of his warheads and ships and everything, and he's basically we gotta get out of here. And so it's really cool, her glowing and flying around in space and everything. I like that. And then she confronts Yon-Rogg, and, he tells her to beat him without her powers. And I like that she just tells him, I've got nothing to prove to you, because, yeah, if you have those superpowers, why wouldn't you use them? And also, she has, he keeps, implying she's out of control with her emotions. She's never been overly emotional in this throughout this whole movie. So I'm not sure where that's from. But yeah, so she kind of takes him out and sends him back and everything. And then so Carol gives Fury the pager that we see him use in the end credit scene of Infinity War. And then the first end credit scene of this movie shows what's left of the Avengers, Cap and Black Widow, War Machine, and Bruce. Somehow they ended up with the pager. I'm not sure how, because Nick Fury dusted in the middle of the road. Maybe they had a tracking beacon on his car or something. But they trust that Fury knows what he's doing, so the pager must mean something. And so then the pager goes off, and Captain Marvel's there. And this leads directly into the beginning of Avengers Endgame. So it's a really awesome end credit scene that I think sets up Endgame well. Also in this movie, we meet Goose the Flurkin cat. And as a cat person, I love Goose. I think he's cute and adorable. And I love the reveal that he's a Flurkin alien. And that Goose swallows the Tesseract. But then he vomits it. He coughs it up like a hairball at the very, very end credit scene. And I love that Nick Fury's just adoring him and petting him and everything. And we learn that Nick Fury loses his eye because Goose, the Flurkin cat, scratched him. And that's how he lost his eye. And of course, Goose is a reference to the Top Gun character, which is a movie that probably Carol really liked at the time. So I loved Goose the cat, and if you're a cat person, you probably understand why he's so cute. While I do enjoy the movie overall, I think there are some problems with it. One of them is the women empowerment message. It's definitely a bit heavy-handed. I think Wonder Woman does it better and a little more subtly. Here, it's definitely heavy-handed, and it has nothing to do with Carol being a woman that empowers her. It's more that she just has this drive to never give up, and that she's tough, and that she has all these amazing powers. And that's just why she's awesome. With Wonder Woman, it's more of a subtle theme, and it highlights that what men consider a weakness in women, love, compassion, empathy, that's actually what motivates her to be a superhero and empowers her as Wonder Woman in that movie, and she uses that to her advantage. And in this movie, it's all about Carol needs to control her emotions because she's too emotional, which she never is. So I don't know that this movie handles that theme as well. I think Wonder Woman does it a lot better and in a lot more feminine way. To here, Carol could just be swapped out for a male actor. I don't think it has anything to do with her being a woman. But it is really awesome to see a woman superhero being that awesome and powerful as well. I just think the message is a little bit muddled. Also, I do think this movie kind of has a clunky beginning where we're just thrown into Carol as Veers and with the Kree and the Skrulls and everything. And I don't think the movie really picks up until we team up with Nick Fury. And that's kind of the best parts of the movie. So, and I also think the supporting characters are kind of more fun and interesting than Carol is, which is definitely a problem. So those are kind of some other problems I think that the movie has. But overall, I really do like this movie. I think it's kind of middle of the road for MCU. It's not great, but it's not bad at all. So that's it. That's my review for Captain Marvel. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Maybe you do. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, higher, further, faster, baby. Bye.